3.
Hello and welcome. This is Heavy Business. I'm Aaliyah,
And I'm Curtis.
and we are here today with Josh from Phobophilic. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Excited to talk to you today about your journey as a musician and some other things. So, to get things started, would you mind giving us a brief summary of who you are, what you do in the realms of metal, and the journey of your bands?
Sure. So like it was just said, I'm Josh. I play guitar in a band called Phobophilic. We started in like late 2016, just releasing like demos and jamming. Like prior to that, myself, our bass player Christian, and our drummer Vinny, we had all played in like a hardcore band prior to that together too, for like quite a while. Like started in high school, all that. But yeah, we just started Phobophilic late 2016 and have just been writing music and seeing kind of this like what happened. Like our trajectory wasn't really what we had in mind. Like we hadn't thought that far ahead, but now we're here, I guess. I don't know.
Can you walk us through, like you did some independent demos first, and then you signed with Blood Harvest. Can you walk us through a little bit of the process of the different labels that you've been on and how you were signed to each of those?
Sure. So the Blood Harvest thing actually was we had our EP recorded already, and we were kind of, I guess, shopping, you could say, a little bit. And I guess what's funny about the Blood Harvest thing is that actually before Rodrigo from Blood Harvest had like contacted us, we had already basically like agreed to have a label in the States like release the EP Rotted Life Records in the States. And I think the same day or like it was like very short time period that we had agreed to do that, Rodrigo hit us up and was just had said like he was interested. He'd heard our rehearsal and wanted to know like what are we up to basically. And then as it turned out, Jason from Rotted Life and Rodrigo, they'd already collaborated on like quite a few releases and already had like a relationship. So that's how that kind of came to be, I guess, like a co-release kind of situation where Rodrigo and Blood Harvest were handling like distribution in Europe, and then Jason of Rotted Life in the States. And I guess really like with both of those labels, we weren't technically signed with either. There's not really, I guess technically you could call it like a licensing deal, but there's just nothing on paper either way with either of them. So
I got you. I wonder if that is fairly common. Curtis, do you know if that's common with like more independent labels?
I've not heard it, but this is like the first time I've heard it, but maybe it is more common than I know. But I did have a question just as a follow-up to the Blood Harvest thing. So when it is kind of like a handshake deal kind of, well, and Rotted Life, obviously, when it is kind of like a handshake deal kind of thing, how do you kind of have the agreement so that way you don't get screwed later, I guess is how, like, if you know what I mean.
Sure. So I guess with those releases, the deal really was that in exchange for Rotted Life and Blood Harvest just handling like the production of like the music itself, like the cassettes and the vinyl, we just got a percentage of those. And then I think with the streaming side, we still kept all of that, save for any money that was made like through Bandcamp, like the labels Bandcamp pages, they kept that. So they're really, in that case, I feel like there wasn't, unless they just didn't send us the product right, like there's not a lot of ways we could get screwed over in a deal like that, just because it's like it's so low key really.
So basically you guys still own the rights to the album and you can re-release it later if you so felt like it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm done, Aaliyah.
So I wanted to ask, how did you compile your list of labels to shop to when you were first shopping in that EP out?
We were just really looking to just like other bands like that we thought were kind of like where we were at, and like what we thought would be like realistic for us to like get a response to. And we just thought like Blood Harvest had put out like a bunch of releases we really like. And Rotted Life was just like kind of just starting to build like their roster at the time, but they still had like Coffin Rot and Molder, like other bands we were aware of. Um, so I think it was really just that, like, really just trying to see like what worked for other bands and just doing research more so that way. Because we, at that point, we hadn't made a lot of like connections with other metal bands really.
So when it came time to then shop your album to Prosthetic or to other labels, what was
Mhm.
that process like?
So that actually kind of caught us off guard a little bit because I'll just tell the story. So we hadn't finished writing the record yet, but it was getting close. But we had thought, okay, we're gonna write and record the record and then shop it once it's like actually finished. And then Steve from Prosthetic sent us an email just asking like again like, hey, like we're interested in you guys. What are you up to, etc. And that kind of made us feel like, oh, like okay, we better like go demo these tracks, like go demo like the three, what at the time we thought were like the three strongest tracks, so we can like send this to Steve, but also so we can like send it to a couple other labels and just like feel out um, just what we were going to do really. So we did that. There was like one other label we were considering, and we got that already, sent them the demos, and it had maybe been like 1 or 2 months, and we were still like talking with Steve over at Prosthetic too at this time, just kind of just because it was all new to us. Like we were really just wanted to know like how does the label work, like what should we expect, like these kind of things. But anyway, so a couple months go by, we don't hear back from this other label. We're like, okay, after talking with Steve, like Prosthetic seems like they're kind of in line with like what we want to do, like as a band, like for our career, whatever. And it just felt like it made sense. So then we signed with them. But funny enough, 2 months after that, so like 4 months later, then we hear back from this other label and they're like, hey guys,
Of
you're still looking.
course.
Yeah, which was, it's funny that's how it worked out. But I think like just with Prosthetic, like everything still worked out, in our favor. So
I wanted to just quickly ask, so you said that Steve had contacted you, but were you guys kind of shopping them first? Maybe I missed you saying that.
we hadn't shopped them first. I think
Okay.
like we were kind of looking at more like, I guess what you could say are like tastemaker
Mhm.
labels, like in the death metal space. Like
Yeah.
that was what we were like kind of looking, or like when we were like, who should we shop this to? Like that's who we like, 20 Bucks Spin, Dark Descent, etc.
Mhm.
Like labels like that.
Yeah.
So that, and then that's why like the Prosthetic thing kind of caught us off guard. I guess there was like, they had followed us on Instagram like a few months prior, so we kind of had it like, okay, maybe like we're on their radar, but like nothing had come of that until Steve reached out. But
Well, it must have felt kind of random because you're going from Blood Harvest to an album to a label that put out like Lamb of God and All That
right,
Remains, right? So
yeah,
I
yeah.
could see it. Okay, so the next question I just had is just as a follow-up for it. So Prosthetic reached out, you said. How much time span was there then between signing and then getting the actual album out?
Oh, maybe like at least a year and a half, probably, because we had recorded the record in July of like 2021, and we had already signed prior to that and announced it too. Um, so it's like a little over a year, probably like year and a half, I'd say, from like signing to the actual album coming out.
And how frustrating was that after dealing with the death metal labels who will let you release in like 3 months?
Well, really, like that was it was kind of on us, like why it took so long partially because
Fair.
we had the record written, but we hadn't gotten the artwork done yet. And so it was frustrating, but it was really like at that time, like we were initially trying for like a summer release of like 2022, but like we just weren't ready. And the vinyl production stuff, like at that time too, was we were just trying to have everything, like all the physical formats line up with the release too. But we ended up like going through like 3 different sets of test presses for the record, and just like the layout, we ended up doing that ourselves too, because we're just picky and stupid sometimes. I don't know. So it just like that wasn't really on Prosthetic. That was on us, really.
Yeah, everything takes time.
Yeah, for sure.
I have another quick question just about that since you brought it up. Sorry, Aaliyah, I'm probably going off topic a little bit, but layout. So are you the one that does the layout, or who handles the layout in the band?
Our bass player did the layout for the vinyl and the cassette CD. He did all the layouts for the physicals.
So you don't have any part of it. So if I ask you a question about it, it's probably going to be like, eh.
So I had like a small part of it. I put together like what became just like the baseline for it, and then Christian went and remade it and made it look good. So I might be able to answer. And like Christian and I are roommates. Like I was there when he was working on this, so like maybe I'll be able to answer the question, but maybe not.
Well, how about we just give me general then? So what's the process for working out the layout?
Sitting at a computer. Well, okay, I'll back up. First, it's like, okay, let's do some research. Let's like look at other records that we have of bands that we like and like see what their layouts are like. And then it's like sitting at the computer for hours on end, like tweaking things. And then because this is also like the first layouts really that Christian has done like on this scale. Like we had done some of like our self-release stuff, but it was like obviously like much less of a task than doing, multi-format like album layouts and all that. So it was a lot of time sitting there and trying to think like, okay, how can we make this like look really good? Like we kind of have limited elements here, to work with. And eventually we like got it to where we were happy. But yeah, it was a lot of nights just sitting on the computer being frustrated.
Fair enough. Aaliyah?
So you guys are actually self-managed. I hear you co-manage with another band member.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the benefits and drawbacks that come from self-management? Yeah.
Well, some of the benefits I think are that like you just have a better understanding of like what's going on. Some of the drawbacks is it can be a lot of work at times, or like I don't know, like when you're in a band, like you don't imagine that you have a bunch of emails to respond to and you're coordinating all these things. Like necessarily you initially just think, oh, I'm playing music, it's cool and fun, and it is cool and fun. But I think like I guess for us it's just that we just want to have that understanding of like what is going on at all levels, like as it pertains to our band. And I guess it is like kind of a control thing in a way, but really like it just stems out of like we just don't think we're like at that point yet, because we're I don't know, we just try and go by the model. We will try and handle these things ourselves until we are like too busy or it's like too above our head to do, I guess. So
that is really interesting, because a lot of bands that are not even on a label that's even that big will try to get a manager. So how did you kind of like come to the conclusion that was the way to do it?
I think like that was just, so we're from North Dakota. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere, so it just like we were already in the mindset of like anything we do or want to do, like we're probably gonna have to do it ourselves, because there's not like a huge network of people here. Like there are scenes and whatever, but there's not like a big band here that we could like ask questions or like, you know what I mean. So that I think that's like where the mindset kind of started. And again, it just evolved into like, okay, we've done this to a degree. Like, I don't really see a reason why we need to have someone else handle these kind of things, because like we can ourselves, and it seems to be going, just fine for now. So
Fair enough.
And there's plenty of reasons why you wouldn't want to bring a manager in too early in your band's lifespan.
Right.
So just one more question I had on the management thing. Just sorry, Leah, I think I cut you off. So like you guys booked yourselves on the Undeath tour and the 200 Stab Wounds tour, I'm assuming, correct?
I wouldn't say like we booked ourselves. So I mean, that was really like we had already had a connection with Undeath. Like prior to that, like around the time our EP came out, just because like we're just fans of each other's bands.
Sure.
And I think that like and then when we met them in person, like we played like LDB, like a hardcore fest in Louisville, Kentucky, and Undeath's manager was the one who like had asked us to play that, and we just like really clicked. And their manager Colin had kind of put it in our ear like, hey, when Undeath does their first headliner, like we're hitting you up. And then
so that's how connection.
Like, yeah, so it was like that was like not really, that was purely circumstance, really. Like we just already had that connection. And same with like 200 Stab Wounds to like a lesser degree, just because like they had came, like we're aware of each other, like they'd come through our city, we'd played shows with like their bass player Ezra's old band. So it was really just like having those connections in that way, more so than us like I guess pitching it or like booking it in that way. Yeah.
Okay, then let me go back in there on this question. How did you get those connections?
So the Undeath like connection in particular, that was like purely, I think, just because we were fans of each other. And like we like around the time they were releasing like their first 2 demos, it was like just a similar time like when we put out our demo, so I think they were just being like talked about at the same time. But as far as like other connections we've made, it was because we booked like a few of our own tours too, like a Midwest tour and then one out to the East Coast, and we made a lot of connections that way too, just through like having to book our own shows and talking to a lot of people, I guess. So
fair enough.
Well, that was kind of the touring topic.
There's more we want to talk about with touring, though.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and dive into that, Curtis?
Cool. I didn't know if I was allowed to yet. So you got a big tour coming up, a big one. So can you kind of go, for anybody who's listening that doesn't know, they're opening for the Black Dahlia Murder Tour that's happening in a month or 2. I can't remember the exact date, but how did that kind of come about? Because that's pretty big for you guys.
Yeah, so that also I think was due to connections maybe outside of our control in a way. We'd actually prior to Trevor's passing, we'd been pitched like doing an opening slot for Black Dahlia. And I guess so here's like the thing with that. The person who owns Prosthetic EJ, he's Black Dahlia's manager. Okay, so I think like he probably just, what I imagine is that he saw like, okay, this band is like, they're doing something, like, let me push them maybe, on an upward trajectory. So I think really that's like, that to me is probably like part of why we're on the package, is just there's that connection there. And like, like our record is selling, like, we had a successful tour prior, and yeah, I think it was just EJ trying to help his bands out, I guess.
The label owner / label manager, or not label manager, manager of the other band. So now, next thing on that, so you guys are going to be the first band on the bill, correct?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so here's a question I got. So how does one deal with that being like the first band? Because I mean, that's got to be tough. You guys were the first band on that other bill that I saw you guys on, 200 Stab
Yeah.
Wounds. That's got to be fucking tough because everyone's there to see the headliner. I know you guys were selling albums, but I'm sure there were plenty of people that had no fucking clue who you were.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you could definitely tell at which shows that, you know, people had heard of us.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think especially for us on the Undeath and 200 Stab Wounds tour, that was the first like professional, you know, tour that we'd actually done that was that long. So we were definitely kind of like trying to be on our P's and Q's, trying to be very professional, be on time. But I think like in a way it kind of worked like out in our favor, because most nights like everyone's still in the room, because you know what I mean, like everyone's still in the room, like we play first, you know, once our set's done, we're done, right? There's not that kind of like, okay, I'm waiting to play, like I'm getting anxious, you know, whatever. And like all those guys like on the package they're so chill, like it was such a good experience. So there wasn't, you know, it never felt weird or like anything like that with it, like any other bands or like crew on the tour. But I think it was definitely like leading up to it, we were pretty nervous, just
I'm sure
that new experience, and like just wanting to, I guess, try and show that like, hey, like we belong on this package too, you know, we're not trying to come out here and be sloppy, whatever, you know.
fair enough. And then one other question I had, did you guys ever have any circumstances where it was like you played to like nobody because you were first?
Not on that tour really. They for like there were a couple shows where they just like weren't like well attended, so like in that case like yeah, but like that's just how the show was, like but I know like the Black Dahlia tour will be a whole different experience. Like I'm prepared for some shows where, you know, we're playing to no one because they're still just letting people in. So
yeah. So how does one mentally prepare themselves for that?
I don't know, because to be honest, like yeah, that stuff, it does hurt a little bit, but I get just try and remember, like I don't know, just, and I kind of think this about just like being on the road period, is like you just have to be grateful to even have the opportunity, you know, and like just be realistic with yourself that like yeah, you're the first of 5 on a tour like this, like yeah, there are going to be some nights where you're not playing to very many people, and that's just what it is. But yeah, that's just because I guess like my mindset and like our mindset when we're on the road is like we're there to work, we're there to play the show, and we're going to put on the same show no matter how many people are watching us, you know, like, and that's just what it is. Like we've played plenty of shows too on our own where there's like 15 people in the room or like 10 people, and it's like yeah, at the end of the night like it doesn't feel good, like, you know, it hurts the ego sometimes a little bit, but you have to
Sure.
I'm sure
it's just part of the territory, and you got to be grateful you're even there, because it just, a lot of bands like they can't even get to the point where they're even doing like a DIY tour for, you know, whatever reason. So
Yep. Keep things in perspective. So branching off into another topic, doing merch. Curtis tells me that you have run merch for other bands, or just your band?
it was his
just
band.
just my band. Like on the tour, the 200 and Undeath tour, I did merch almost every night. There was one night where I was just sick and had to like tap another guy in. I was like, I gotta just like sit in the van. But yeah, for that tour I did the merch, and for Black Dahlia I'm planning on doing the merch as well.
So how do you keep everything in order when you're on tour? This is a topic we really haven't talked about on the podcast yet. And I know that there's got to be some logistics to it. I can barely keep it straight when I'm doing a one-off show.
Sure. So it is tricky, especially like the tour we just did, like we didn't even bring a trailer, like everything's in the van. Basically it started with like before the tour, like I counted everything, like marked it, put everything in a spreadsheet, all the designs, like every size, like accounted for our displays, like copies we like kept for ourselves, things like that. And then like every show I'd make a new spreadsheet and be like, okay, here's what I sold, like here's every size of everything I sold. I'm gonna subtract it against like what I started with, make my new sheet off those numbers. And that was like every night. I came to find out there are apps specifically for this that make it much easier. So like on the Black Dahlia tour, I'm definitely going to be probably using those. But yeah,
Can you spell the names of the apps?
Yep. The one app I was told about is at Venue. That I think you can also use as like a point of sale system too, like Square. But actually, like Grotto, Undeath's tour manager, put me onto that. And it's like a subscription based service to just basically keep track of your inventory. Like, and it also, I think, can like based on your sales predict like this is when you're going to need more merch, or like this is when you'll probably run out of this, which would help a lot because we ran into that too.
I was going to say, did you have to reorder any merch when you were in the middle of tour?
We did. So we ended up being like pretty low on like the most commonly sold sizes. Like 10 days into tour, we pretty severely underestimated like what we would be selling.
That's good though. That's good.
That is good. It's a good problem.
And I think it happens though.
Sure.
I've heard it happen. So
yeah. And that was a good learning experience too, figure it like coordinating that. And because we ended up getting like two different reprints of merch, like one we picked up when we were in California and another we had mailed to us. But yeah, that's definitely something that happens for sure.
I had a couple questions about the merch just really quickly here. So now so when you're doing merch, how do you not like go insane after like, you know, talking to people all night? Like seriously, because you were very friendly to me. You said hello, the whole 9 yards. I couldn't do it. Like, how do you like?
Again, because like when I'm out there, like I look at, I guess I just know like when I'm out there, like beyond this, like doing that being like a dream, right, of mine. So it's like I made it happen this far. Like I don't want to. It's just like the gratitude thing, right? Because at the end of the day, it's like, and don't get me wrong, like we talk in the van about the Punishers too and all that. But at the end of the day, like we remind ourselves, like, you know, those are people who paid to come to the show, like said hello, are interested in our band, like picked up merch, you know, whatever, even if they didn't pick up merch, even if they just wanted to chat and say that they liked our set. Like at the end of the day, like I appreciate all of that because that's what I want to do. Right. And I just think like, I don't know, like it's just treating people with respect, I guess, kind of thing. And like I know personally, like I'm not super stoked when I go up to someone who's like providing me a service and they seem disinterested or like like they just don't want to be there. It's like that's like I want to be there, you know. So
yeah,
and
I mean I wanted to buy as soon as you started talking to me. I was like, oh, he knows me. I'm talking to him. He seems really nice. I was gonna buy something anyways, but I was like, fuck, I'll buy something anyways.
Hell yeah, sick. And that's the thing too. Is like I don't know. Cause there was like a point that like really kind of made what we were talking about very clear. Is like we, you know, played a show, kind of got caught up with maybe someone you'd label as a Punisher and whatever. But then it's like, you know, we know of this person, like we follow him on social media, and then you see him make a post like, oh, like this show was like one of the best nights of my life. Like I got to kick it with so and so and so and so from all these bands, like, and it's like, I don't know, like how I can't be mad about that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's awesome. Like, and it's like very crazy to me and humbling to think like I could be a part of that experience for someone else, you know? I don't know.
That's awesome. One last question I have personally on this subject. So now one issue I've seen with bands is taking payments. So you guys didn't have a point of sale machine, I don't think, in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. I think I had to do PayPal.
That's right.
So how do you kind of handle it? The person comes up, they're like, I only want to pay by credit card type thing. Like what do you actually do as a merch guy in this, like when you're trying to get them to pay?
So I guess it kind of depends. So in the States, we do have like we're using Square. We just like hadn't had an account set up for Canada yet.
Fair.
but most of the time I try and direct them to like what is the easiest form of payment for me, which is
Mhm.
usually Square. It's just like the simplest. I don't have to like count money or grab change, like things like that. Um, there were like a few times where people paid by PayPal and either like
Hi, that
they,
was me.
yours was all good. Your
Okay.
transaction was all good, but I definitely remember there was like a guy who I didn't check the email thoroughly enough, so like
Oh
that
no.
money just like I don't know where it is, which like it's whatever, I guess. Like it was a bummer, but what can I do about that, you know? Besides know to check it more closely next time.
You notice I told you to check. I even followed up with
Yeah,
you. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah,
dude, did you get the money?
yeah. We need to get the QR code thing set up for that so people can just scan it. I guess, yeah, like when I'm selling merch, I wanna make it as simple as possible so like there aren't mistakes like that. And I made mistakes in Square too, because we have we have like discounts and things set up like that for when we're like trading merch with bands or like you know other people like in the industry, just things like that. And I definitely like hit that by mistake like a few times for you know when I shouldn't have, but
Yeah.
it just you learn, right? So
And then one more question I just actually had on the merch setup. So is there like some sort of like I don't know how it works. Like when you're doing the table setup, like how do you kind of plan it out so that way you can maximize your sales if you
I
have a
guess
way?
sure. It was kind of a work in progress. Like as the tour went on, we kind of figured out like, okay, like here's how we should lay this out, like this fits in this space. I mean, really like utilizing like the racks, I think, to hang your shirts up or like seem to me to be like the best way to do it if there's space for you to do it. And also like I think something like we try to do is like label everything, like label all the shirts with like numbers because it's loud and it's like easier for someone to like throw up a 4 than it is to say like I want that one in the corner that looks just like this other design, like whatever. uh Things like that I think like help, although I found that like not everybody reads them still. Like they're there but like sometimes they get ignored anyway. But it definitely helps, like especially if you're like running low on sizes, like just putting it on the shirt like we only have like small 2x and 3x, it'll save you a few minutes at the table sometimes, not always though. But
Do we have any more merch questions, Leah?
I don't have any
Okay.
more merch questions, but I will say I do have for my band, we don't have a Square set up.
mhm,
So we just have the QR code from paypal.me on a
oh,
little paper foldable sign so
mhm.
people can scan it. It works pretty well.
Yeah, we need to get that set up too because it like our Gmail's like phobophilic@gmail.com, and yeah, it's tough for people for people. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need to get the QR code set up for
It's
sure.
it's yeah, QR codes are the way of the future, man.
Hmm.
Actually, I had one more merch question. If we could just stay on this for one more second. Do you
Sure.
have like
Sure.
some sort of plan in mind on how to maximize your sales during the Black Dahlia tour? Because I'm assuming there's going to be a shitload of people that have never heard of you since they're pretty mainstream. So what's the plan, dude?
Um, so kind of, I guess like when we're thinking of the spread for this shirt, we were like, I guess put it like this, like obviously like any design you put out, you want it to be sick, you want it to look good, right? But I guess we were kind of thinking beyond that, like, okay, like what can for these designs, like how can we, I guess not add value, but maybe make there be like a little more of a reason to buy it. And that was something like we kind of realized too on the last tour, like on a tour, like people want shirts with tour dates on them, right? Like um so we kind of were like, okay, we want to have like these items with tour dates on them, we want to have like this kind of shirt that's like an album t-shirt or something like that. So if someone is coming, like this is the first time they were able to catch us since the album came out, or they've never heard of us before but they're like, they liked what they saw, they can be like, okay, let me rep the shirt of the album that just got put out, like things like that. I guess we try and think about, um and just I guess like trying to understand your market, I guess, so to say. Like again, we realized like we need to have patches on these tours, like Metal people love patches.
The patches are making a comeback.
Yes, yep. And like just like things like that, I guess.
Are you going to have anything unique other than what you said for the shirt?
I mean, everything that we're gonna bring, or I guess like the printed items, like they're just gonna be exclusive to the tour.
Cool.
So like in that sense, I guess so. I don't know, like as far as like out of the box, like I don't think so. There's still gonna be it's still gonna be a death metal t-shirt, right? But they will be like exclusive to the tour.
So bring money is what you're saying.
Yes, please. If you can, we'd appreciate it.
I had to plug that for you, Josh. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
The final topic, this is a brief, I think, topic. We noticed that you were on Decibel's top releases for last year.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know if you noticed any reflection on sales or streams or any benefits that might have come from being published in that capacity.
So I guess my answer to this will maybe not be discouraging, but I guess because I just want to, I mean, what I want to say about this is kind of like, as a band, I've found like, at least in like the span of our career, is like, you never know really what's going to give you that boost. Because there's like, yeah, we were all like really stoked to be included on the list, but like, it just you might not see like a jump in followers or like a jump in streams from that per se. I guess something like funny that I think about is like when we announced that like one of our first DIY tours, like after our EP came out, we were like, oh, I think like we'll get a boost from this. And like we did get some followers. But the thing that got us the most like tangible increase in like followers and like streams was like being reposted. Like some of the guys at the time in Sanguisugabog came out to one of the shows, and like being posted on their story just like got us, like
really.
Once that was done, we could tell like, okay, we just got like a big jump in followers. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like things like that, like you never know what they're gonna do for you, and in terms of like how many followers you have, your streams, like sales. I guess I will say like being off the tour, like as the tour was happening, like I definitely noticed like, yeah, we had like quite a few album sales like online. So I think there's things like that where it's like a safe bet, like this will give you a boost. But then the other things like I guess it's just uncertain. I'll say like once
Sure.
once that was posted, it wasn't, nothing like real crazy happened in our inbox or anything like that.
Yeah. And
But
I mean, that's really cool when that stuff happens.
Mhm.
I think I just worry that sometimes maybe bands idealize that so much and they don't realize that it's like not necessary. It's cool to have it happen, but it's not your be all end all to get on a list like that.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Yeah.
That being said, I think it's fucking cool.
But it was fucking
Yep,
cool. Yeah.
agreed. I
That's
know.
really fucking cool.
I was really like, it's crazy.
I did have a quick follow-up just to that kind of because you mentioned about the increase in followers being reposted by different bands. But what actions have you done organically that you think got you the most followers? I'm assuming you run the social media accounts.
I'm logged into them.
Okay. You're logged
yeah.
into them? Okay.
I'm logged into them. Like I Christian and I just kind of have this thing, like if Christian's writing the post, like usually I'm the one who like checks it over before it's posted, like vice versa with emails, like things like that. So like I'm aware of what goes on there. The things like our signing announcement, like once our record was actually like out, like there was definitely like a big jump. I guess too, like if you can get in like certain Spotify playlists, like you'll definitely see like that reflected like in your numbers and like on the song that is in the playlist. And just like these tours, like honestly, like when we announced the Undeath 200 tour, like saw a big jump, and then like we're still seeing a big jump from the Black Dahlia announcement as well. So I think though it's really the tours, like mostly I'd say, and obviously releasing music, but
I was actually going to bring that up. Did you see an increase of anything after the Black Dahlia announcement?
Oh yeah, like I think within a day, like we had already jumped like 100 followers off
Wow.
that, and like streaming numbers had like went up to like by a few hundred, and then like again the next day it was like another 100 as well. So like yeah, there was definitely like that definitely helped boost us up for sure.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So cool, and lots of good takeaways from today's episode. Thank you
Yep.
so much, Josh, again for coming on. This was really great.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. I had a great time too.
Awesome. And congrats on the tour. Good luck on the tour. And everyone listening, I hope you learned something today too. And until next time, make like a bull and throw those horns up.